Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The head of the United Nations says any attack on Europe's largest nuclear power station is like a suicide mission. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says inspectors must be given access to the Zaporizhzhia plant after it was shelled at the weekend. Ukraine and Russia have accused each other of shelling the station. The fighting has prompted the UN's nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, to warn of the very real risk of a nuclear disaster.
Any attack to a nuclear plant is a suicidal thing, and I hope that those attacks will end. And at the same time, I hope that the IAEA will be able to have access to the plant and to exercise its mandate competencies.
A ceasefire between Israel and Palestinian militants in the Gaza Strip appears to be holding. The Egypt-brokered truce followed 3 days of violence, with Israel targeting the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and militants firing rockets into Israel. At least 44 Palestinians died in the most serious flare-up since an 11-day conflict in May 2021. On Monday, Israel began lifting its blockade of the Strip, allowing the first fuel tanks to enter. The latest violence began with attacks by Israel on sites in the Gaza Strip, which its military said was in response to threats from a militant group. Chad's military ruler, Mahamat Idris Deby, has signed a peace deal with more than 40 opposition groups aimed at paving the way for a national dialogue later in August. A signing ceremony for the agreement, which included the parties agreeing to take part in a national inclusive dialogue, was attended by more than 30 rebel groups and followed months of talks in the Qatari capital. But the main rebel group, the Front for Change and Concord in Chad, refused to sign the deal. It had insisted Mr. Deby excludes himself from elections, which are due to take place in October. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who's in South Africa at the start of a 3-nation African tour, has held talks today with his South African counterpart, Naledi Pandor. Mr. Blinken is expected to announce a new strategy for Africa to boost American influence on the continent amid concerns that Washington is losing out to both China and Russia. Relations have been strained in recent months as South Africa, a regional superpower, remained neutral in the Ukraine war. Ms. Pandor has accused the US of trying to punish African countries for refusing to join Western calls to condemn Moscow. After South Africa, Mr. Blinken will go to Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
We're profoundly joined and connected in, I think, a basic outlook as two great constitutional democracies with a shared set of values. But to your point, we bring different perspectives on some issues. And I have to tell you, as a result of our many conversations, you've helped me rethink things and look at things in a different light. And I'm really grateful for that.
Final preparations are underway for the much-anticipated elections in Kenya, which are due to start tomorrow.
9th August 2022.
The Electoral Commission have been checking and distributing election material to polling stations ahead of the vote. Security has also been stepped up in much of the country, with police deployed to polling stations. Kenya's 22 million voters will choose the next president, as well as senators, governors and lawmakers. President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is stepping down after 10 years, has campaigned for veteran opposition leader Raila Odinga,
fellow Kenyans,
who has pledged to renegotiate terms of increased debts to free up cash.
we will overcome.
His opponent is Deputy President William Ruto, who has pledged to reduce borrowing and stimulate small enterprises to help drive growth in the country. And finally, an unexploded World War II bomb submerged in an Italian river has been revealed due to an extreme drought. The 450-kilogram bomb was found by fishermen on the banks of the depleted River Po. Large sections of the 650-kilometre river have dried up in Italy's worst drought for 70 years. Unusually hot weather and low rainfall levels have compounded North Italy's water shortages and heightened fears about the effects of climate change. Army officials detonated the bomb in a controlled explosion on Sunday. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.